Today on What's Next.
We still don't want to look and say, so I have some mild cognitive impairment. Should I do something about it other than, is there a pill I can take?
Literally, I have many missing body parts, and here I am.
And when I start focusing on what's going wrong, I'll get more of what's going wrong.
Welcome back to What's Next, a weekly reminder for you to do you, to choose your what's next, because otherwise life or your family or society will choose for you. And as we all know, it's easy to get trapped in a life that we don't love. And having a life that we do love is something that we should all aspire to. Of course, we can't control exactly what happens in life, but we can prepare. We can invest in the future that we want to live. To a large extent, mobility supports independence, and we can choose to start moving today. To a large extent, partners and friends support happiness, and we can choose to invest in those relationships today. But what about our brain health? What choices can we make today to help ensure a healthy brain as we age? Well, here's an important truth that's based upon multiple incontrovertible research in recent years. We all have the ability to slow, delay, and even prevent Alzheimer's and related dementias. And thanks to exciting advances in technology, we can choose to find out if we are either predisposed for the disease or if we're already showing signs of it, so we can make informed lifestyle and treatment choices today. You know, there's so much stigma around dementia that many times we ignore symptoms in ourselves and in our loved ones. We avoid conversations about brain changes. We want to believe it's just normal aging. We want to hope for the best because we're terrified of the worst. Teepa Snow is one of the world's leading advocates and educators for anyone living with dementia or other forms of brain changes. 40 years of clinical and academic experience informs the work that she does around the world to provide awareness, knowledge, and hands-on skills in dementia care. We spoke with Teepa recently about what steps we can all take to protect our brain health and why it's important to not let the stigma of dementia get in the way of taking action today.
If I said to you, you could possibly buy yourself 5 to 8 years of not having clinical symptoms that are pretty significant to changing your life and my life as your support, what would you say back to me?
Tell me how.
Yeah, well, you would think that, but when it comes to dementia, everybody's so scared of it. Well, no, that's just normal aging, right? So if I just do my New York Times crossword puzzle, and I go out and do a little bit of walking, and I try not to drink too much, and I try to be a little social, that'll do it, right? And it's like, well, for a lot of us, it won't. It's not, because it's already changing. So I think the reality is we're going to be swept away unless we start recognizing there is dementia in the world. And I might be the one who's starting to show symptoms. So what could we do together that would make this transition less problematic? Because if I'm the one developing the condition, you might be the person who's providing care. And without the right knowledge and skill, your stress level starts to go up. And one of the really strong indicators of a risk pattern for spontaneous dementia, not the genetically pre-programmed type, is distress over periods of your life.
We've all said for a long time, lifestyle choices we make can delay, maybe prevent, slow down the progression of, but now there's actual research that proves it. I mean, that's changed the narrative coming out of a lot of these national Alzheimer's dementia organizations.
You would think. But we still don't want to look and say, so I have some mild cognitive impairment. Should I do something about it other than, is there a pill I can take?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, the evidence there is not strong. What's strong is, let's go back to your lifestyle. And for the kids that are helping you, let's look at their lifestyle while we're at it. Because the sooner we start that lifestyle pattern, it has to be a pattern, it can't be something you do on Mondays, that's where we see the biggest bang for the buck. We know that getting out in nature, spending time with animals, being social, all of those can have impact. Eating well, look at how when we eat. I mean, it does matter. I mean, I'm sorry, but it does matter. So there's no free ride. And I know people are thinking, but George Burns, and it's like, oh yeah, I mean, there's always super agers. There's really lucky people and really genetically gifted people. Are you one of them? I mean, well, maybe so, but maybe not. I'd rather stack the odds in my favor in case I'm not one of them.
Now you read about the fact there's blood tests, there's AI that's figuring this stuff out. But what do you say to somebody? Because you read all the time, well, that's just the normal side of aging. If we start to not be able to get the word, if we can't complete the thought, at what point do we get tested? What do we do?
Well, see, this is where if we had a baseline, then we could say, you are seeing some shifts. Tell me how you're feeling about that first. How are you doing with that? Okay, I feel like crap. And tell me what you're doing every day. Because now I know where there's potential for shift. So you're having trouble with some words. Tell me what you're doing on a daily pattern. What's your sleep pattern? What's your social pattern? How often are you playing games with yourself about, okay, let's name as many animals as you can. Okay, timer, check. And let's play with that. Now I'm going to give you visuals of animals and ask you to do it, to see what happens when we add a visual imagery part. So we quit seeing it as dead ends and we start seeing it as avenues of possibility, because we don't know. We truly are just on that front edge of what happens if we do intervene in those times. What happens if we do take that chance of like, okay, so you're having some language things. Are they mostly nouns or verbs? I mean, really getting curious about it instead of being so scared. I can't think of words. And it's like, okay, what kind? Have you ever done a foreign language? Those kinds of questions. How about if we play with this stuff instead of get so worried about it? Turns out the chemistry of your brain just changes just like that. And guess what you can suddenly do that you couldn't do 5 minutes ago? Find those words. Because we are incredibly facile at neuroplasticity, truly. And once we recognize things are changing, instead of getting all gloom and doom on it, say, well, okay, let's see what we could do if we play around with it a little bit. Try dancing with a part and doing a new kind of dance step. Try Tai Chi and then exercise and then use your brain. See what happens.
Teepa likens not wanting to know about dementia as early as possible to not wanting to know about cancer as early as possible. It makes no sense because it is possible to slow the progression. Here's the deal about Alzheimer's. There is no cure, at least not yet. There may never be a cure, which is why once you have it, you can't turn back the clock. But you can prevent it before you get it, and you can slow it down once you have it. You can watch our entire interview with Teepa and a lot more inspirational content on our free streaming platform, watch.growingbolder.com. Caring for a loved one with dementia or really any other health need is something that impacts nearly every family. There are nearly 60 million unpaid caregivers in the U.S. alone looking after an adult with a disease or a special need. Another champion in the caregiving space is Amy Cameron O'Rourke. With over 30 years of care management experience, her book, The Fragile Years, Proven Strategies for the Care of Aging Loved Ones, provides tips on how to avoid mistakes in the caregiving journey. She talks about the art of advocating for the needs and desires of those you care for.
Well, you have to be forceful. I think you have to be patient. What I found, and there's so many really good physicians, but they're in a hurry. They're on a time clock. They got to pay attention to volume. They don't always have the time that's required to have the conversation. So I have to say, we're going to take the time. And if now's not the time, let's talk when you do have the time, because this is important. And I have to be firm. I try to be nice, but very firm, and say, we're not going to make a decision until we get absolutely the time we need to make the decision. But I think it's important for anybody that's advocating to know the person that you're trying to advocate for and follow their values, not your own.
That's kind of like what swimming taught me. If you keep at it, you get better every day.
Welcome back to What's Next. There are choices we get to make in life, where to go to college, who to marry, and how to find purpose in our life. And then there are the hard choices that we're forced to make because of unexpected events or diagnosis. It's these choices that ultimately define our lives. Susan Helmrich is a DES daughter. DES is a synthetic hormone that was prescribed to many pregnant women between 1940 and 1971 to prevent miscarriage. DES daughters are 40% more likely to develop several specific cancers, and that's exactly what happened to Susan, again and again, 3 times. A swimmer all her life, following each cancer diagnosis and multiple surgeries, Susan continued to make the choice to get back into the pool and to reclaim her life. The best master swimmers in the world have gathered in Mesa, Arizona for the U.S. National Championships, and 55-year-old Dr. Susan Helmrich is moments away from a major goal. Susan has plenty of determination, but doesn't have
My entire reproductive system, one lung, my gallbladder, my duodenum, half of my pancreas, and everything from my liver was rerouted. So literally, I have many, many missing body parts, and here I am.
Susan has battled back and beaten 3 very serious cancers to get here.
Okay, door mark.
Battles that began decades ago. Susan grew up in competitive swimming. In the late 70s, she was captain of the Syracuse University team. After graduating, Susan was diagnosed with a rare vaginal cancer, a hallmark of DES exposure in the womb. In a 10.5-hour operation, doctors removed Susan's vagina, uterus, and lymph nodes, reconstructing her vagina with her colon, a process requiring 2 more major surgeries over the next 3 years. As soon as possible, Susan was back in the pool.
Swimming and training and goal setting and surviving really is what it's all about. And without swimming, I don't think I would have survived. I really don't.
Cancer-free for 2 decades, Susan earned her master's from Harvard and her PhD in epidemiology from Cal Berkeley. She became an advocate for other DES daughters, got married, raised a family, and continued to swim. But in 1999, she was diagnosed with lung cancer, even though she never smoked a single cigarette. Doctors removed nearly her entire left lung, and once again, she got back into the pool in an effort to recapture her life. 10 years later, in 2009, Susan was diagnosed with a rare form of pancreatic cancer. This photo was taken the morning of her surgery, a final swim with her daughter and husband. Later that day, doctors removed part of her bowel, part of her stomach, her gallbladder, half her pancreas, her bile duct, lymph nodes, and rewired her digestive tract.
You can't imagine that your body can function without all these body parts, a duodenum. I mean, before it was taken out, I was like, I thought you needed a duodenum. Why do you have it? You don't need it. A gallbladder. I have half of my pancreas. It's like you can live without all these organs. So it's kind of astonishing.
A few weeks after surgery, Susan was back in the pool, and it didn't go well.
And I swam 2 laps. And I thought, I'll never swim again. I swam 2 laps and burst into tears. And my husband was with me, and he reminded me that it was worse when I had my lung removed.
And so she kept swimming, kept dreaming of this day, her return to the national championships.
I remember this surgery saying, I can't wait to wake up each morning because I feel better every day. And that's kind of like what swimming taught me. If you keep at it, you get better every day.
Susan is back and better than ever, finishing second in the national championships in the grueling 1650 and third in the 500.
There is a lot of luck involved with cancer. I mean, I could have easily been one of the ones that didn't make it. And, I have a lot of friends and wonderful, positive people who have not made it. Beyond the cells and the tumors that you just can't do anything about, I think that having a positive attitude really helps. And I have never, not one day, I don't think, I've been depressed. You know, I'm just not a depressed person. I've been sad and I've been mad and I've been pissed that I've had to deal with this so many times.
Susan has amazed even herself, overcoming one of the darkest chapters in U.S. drug history. She's done it with the support of her family and friends and her not-so-secret weapon, the one thing she credits above all else for her amazing comebacks: swimming. What's the moral of your story? What do you say to people out there?
Don't stop swimming. I mean, it has saved my life literally 3 times.
Susan is now 68 and says she never really thought that she would live this long. She hopes her story inspires other cancer survivors to keep fighting. And beyond that, she is certainly doing her part to help others. She has now organized and hosted 18 annual Swim Across America events in San Francisco, raising more than $6 million for local children's hospitals. She's choosing to move forward by giving back. You can find more inspirational stories like Susan's on our free streaming platform, watch.growingbolder.com. Check it out.
What are you going to do about it?
Welcome back to What's Next. I'm Mark Middleton. Our friend, Dr. James Smith Jr., makes a living inspiring others. He's a teacher, a coach, and a motivational speaker. As a child growing up in a single-parent household full of tough love, he learned a lot of lessons, and the lesson that he shares today is one that he learned early on. It's up to each of us to change the things we don't like in our life.
I've learned that what you focus on grows, that thoughts become things. And when I start focusing on what's going wrong, I'll get more of what's going wrong. If I have my moment of, darn, what am I going to do next? Then I quickly have to move into action, what I'm going to do about it. I love those 8 words, and those were 8 words that were shared with me a long time ago when I was in corporate, where I wasn't climbing the ladder anymore. My promotions had stopped. And I remember driving home one day after a colleague, a friend got promoted. Someone who I helped get the job got promoted over me. And I went in the house looking for sympathy snacks. And what I got was, what are you going to do about it? So that's how I live. When something is going awry, something's going wrong, something that's going right. And trust me, I've had a lot of those situations in my life, and I still do. I ask myself, what am I going to do about it?
I met Dr. James at an event we were both part of years ago, and we became immediate friends because he is preaching from the Book of Boulder. Don't just go through life, but grow through life. What we focus on grows. Thoughts become things. Good thoughts lead to good things, and negative thoughts lead to negative things. If we want to change something in our lives, we need to ask ourselves Dr. James' 8-word question, what am I going to do about it? All right, let's shift gears a bit for this week's Bold Social. And remember Iris Apfel, the centenarian fashion icon who passed away recently at the age of 102.
Oh, hi, you must be from W. Come on in. I remember very well the first accessory I bought for myself. Oh, I'm so glad you like my brooch. People used to stare at me because everybody had those little bitty ones, and I had these big clunks. Well, bigger is better. These are considerably smaller, but I think the design makes up for loss of heft. Voila.
Welcome back to What's Next, and have you checked out our new streaming service yet? Watch.growingbolder.com is here, providing you 24/7 free access to all of our great content. Check it out today and keep growing bolder. I also hope you're following us on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube, where you will find inspiring content, kindred spirits, and the opportunity to share your thoughts on questions like this one. What choices are you making today that your future self will thank you for? It's a big question, and here's what we know for sure. Change is a constant in life, and we do know with certainty what some of those changes will be. We will all experience physical decline, so why wait for the decline to make the choice to change, to maintain our physical health? our brain health for as long as we can and to slow the progression of any disease should we get one. The choices we make today will determine the options that we have in the future. What small steps can you take toward the outcome you want? It's up to each of us to decide what's next, and the clock is ticking. Exercise your power of choice this week, and we'll see you next week.